So let's start working on the mountains and do a postage stamp from our mountain render. Drop down a postage stamp node, link it here, and bring it down below. So for this, let's grab a couple of these shuffle nodes with the unpremold in this case, because we will want to premold our final result to have the correct blending of the alpha. Let's connect our shuffle nodes. Let's maybe just set up all of our shuffle nodes first. We will use 3 shuffle nodes, and I'll connect all of these. And one more. And we can simply merge these now, and the operations for all of these will be plus. Do another merge here. Set this to plus. And let's bring in our AOVs. So first, I will want to bring in our diffuse mountain dome. For my second one, I want to bring in the sun. And for the third one, I want to bring in the GI. So let's start color correcting these. Let's first drop down a saturation node and let's make all of these completely gray. So set the saturation to 0 and I'll add this to all of these nodes so we can have complete control over the colors. So again, the first grade node for our dome will be the luminance node. I'll just bring this down. Let's add a second grade node and let's make this blue. So increase the blue channels, maybe not so much. And we will do the same thing for our sun. Let's drop this down quite a bit. Add a second grade node for the multiply. Make this blue. And for our GI as well, we might want to decrease the luminance and then make this blue. So something like this. And if I check the result now, we see that we will need a lot of readjusting here, but first I also want to use the ambient occlusion pass, so I will create another copy of these nodes, and I'll place this here. And I want to bring in my ambient occlusion, so AO, and for this I want to do an invert, and let's also add a grade node, and just gain this down quite a bit. So we can see that with this ambient occlusion, it will give us this nice detail in between the crevices of the mountains, which will sort of act like a fog layer. And I found this out originally by doing a lot of tests, and I usually use layers like AO or the Fresnel. And maybe you can also map some costume noise by using the UV pass as well. But in this case, I ended up just using the AO for this. So let's just merge this in again as a plus operation. And then to merge this in, we can do a copy node by pressing K. Let's hook this up to our main chain. And we want to copy our alpha from the original render. So let's reverse the order here. Press Shift X. So we can check now our alpha and we can do a premold. And now we can just merge this in our main chain. So let's bring this over. And now we can do the grading by previewing the final result. So we can go one by one. Let's maybe actually reverse all of these layers. So it's A over B by pressing Shift X. I will disable all of these for now. So we can just look at each individual pass. So maybe for our fill light, the dome light, I want to turn down the luminance a little bit and maybe not have this have so much blue. So now I can enable the sun AOV, and for this maybe we can also drop down the gain a little bit, and we can now enable our GI. So we can see that for this especially we want to drop this down way more. Let's enable also our AO now, and also this will need quite a bit of gaining down. And maybe I can also decrease the gamma. So I just want a little bit of highlight in between the crevices, and I also maybe want to make this just slightly more blue, but in general I want to keep this slightly towards white. So if I turn this on and off, maybe we can also decrease the gamma a little bit, so increase the contrast and just increase the gain. So let's go ahead and fine-tune this just a little bit. We will have to add the fog on top of this, so we will be able to better judge what these settings should be here. And one other thing that I want to do here is I want to use the Z-depth to darken the mountains in the front here. So let's maybe do another shuffle. I'll copy this. Let's do this here before our pre-mult, and I will point this to our main render. So let's bring in our depth and hook this into our alpha. So if I press A, I can drop down a grade node, set the channels here to alpha, and I can increase the white point and adjust the black point as well until we'll filter out the region that we are interested in. So maybe I can also increase the black point a bit and use this as a mask in a grading node here. So if I drop down a grade and point to my alpha, let's go to the grade, and I can gain this down, and we want the reverse effect, so I will just invert our mask. So let's preview the final result, and here we can now properly see. Let's maybe increase the gain back a little bit, and inside this grade for the alpha I can fine-tune the distance, so I can maybe decrease the black point a little bit. Let's go back to our grade. Let's maybe also increase the gamma for this and decrease the grade a little bit. So again, we will come back to this after we add our fog. So the final thing that we will add to our mountains is our center light AOV. And because I forgot to set this up in the original render, I had to create a separate render for that. So I'll just bring this in, but this is essentially the AOV for our point light that we placed on top of the mountain in our 3D scene. So I can simply merge this in our chain before the pre-mult, set this to plus. Let's preview our final result, and we can add a grade node to this and gain this down. And also a second grade node for the colors, and add a little bit of blue. And essentially this is the illumination from our ray. So this will be the setup for the mountains, and let's move forward with the fog.